Welcome back to True Print for Life. I'm your host, Christina Vera.
And I'm your co-host, Maylin, Sambois.
Well, it's probably almost mid-February, towards the end of February by the time you will listen to this episode. So that means you're a little over, 8 to 10 weeks into the new year?
Yes.
Something around there.
2026, by the way.
With 2026. And I know last year when we were wrapping up episodes for 2025, we were kind of describing at that point of feeling like there was still a whole lot happening, and even now it's just still, it's still a lot happening. And obviously, whether that's personally or professionally, it's, 8 weeks into the new year. And it's just it already feels like it's
December.
Just
we skipped the summer, we skipped the spring, the summer,
right.
The fall.
It's just what is happening? And it just feels and it's not and I don't feel like this is just an us thing, because every person I keep running into, they're like, so how you doing? I'm like, I don't know, how are you doing? And it's the same kind of energy of just this running and just so much happening. And then you're, if you're watching what's happening, all over the world right now, there's so much divide for multiple reasons, conflict, uneasiness. The workloads seem, heavier in some, industries with less resources, and it just feels like something is in the air. And I think when you live in a state that is colder months, a majority of the year, it also makes it more challenging.
Like the North Pole.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the North Pole, but Ohio, if you're in the Midwest, if you're in Chicago, New York, it's gray. Although, we finally got over 40 temperatures in the past couple of days, and I feel like folks' energy is starting to pick back up a little bit. So you just things that you just are man, my life sucks. No, you just need to go somewhere tropical for a couple of days. Your life doesn't suck. You just live in a state that is just cloudy and gray for 6 months out of the year. And so, so your life doesn't suck. It's just, you're just in the winter moments right now. And we're all very excited about what's to come, which is that new season. And so when we think about, as we're starting to reflect a little bit of what if we were to start over today? And so we've been reflecting a lot about just business and, personal things. It's if we were to start over today, what would we do differently? And I think that someone, and that's some of the book in our book, The Journey from Who You Are to Who You're Meant to Be. Maylin and I share a lot about our both personal and professional journeys, lessons we've learned. But obviously, as we were sharing those lessons, there's some things that if you could really go back and do it differently, would you? Or do you just take the lesson? Or what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, we can change the past, so we're going to start there. Right. However, if I was giving the opportunity to return to a certain time in my life and redo a few things with the knowledge that I have now, I would. I think the first thing that comes screaming to my mind is getting married too early. I got married at my 20s, not because I wanted to, because my mom was very encouraging about that. We're very cultural, very heavy. You couldn't be with someone unless you were married. And, I was young and my first husband was my first everything. But my mom didn't see it that way. She saw it listen, if you guys are together, then you should get married. And mind you, I was in college, I was working. And I really didn't want to get married. I feel like I had so much to live and I didn't want to end up my parents did. But I also had the pressure of having someone that I love me dearly. And I think she really didn't do it from a bad place.
Yeah.
She did it from I want the best for you. I don't want anybody to nobody to use you, right? That was the thing, nobody to use you. So you should get married. And I remember getting married and I didn't want to move out of my mom's house because I thought that the idea was I got married because you wanted me to. I did that. I still wanted to stay in your house. And that was
that's not how it works.
I was 20, so obviously I have the mindset of a young girl still, right? So I feel like that would have been the first thing I wish I had not done because it was not something that I was I wanted to do. And I didn't take the time to also know the person. So the first thing would have been not getting married because somebody told me to, unless I wanted to. And the second thing was taking my time to truly get to know that person, because then I think things that later came out will have come. And that has been a lesson that I think I will go back to many of the relationships, not just that one, because it's a pattern that I didn't break, right? Like I just continue sometimes in different people making the same thing, and I didn't take the proper time. So I will take my time to really get to know someone, get to know what their values are, get to know when they're upset, when they lose something big, when they win something big, how did they treat me, and not just listen to the words, but look at the actions.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm still learning to. I'm still, I love love, so I'm still navigating that, but that would be the first thing I will have done differently.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you saying that, because I think people get married and relationships are all different for everybody. And so I definitely can see like the marriage piece of it. And in reflection, if I started over today, what I would do differently is more geared towards my finances. Like
that's number 2 for me.
I was like, I think that for me, it's just like, when you grow up economically disadvantaged, and if you grew up poor, you have this scarcity mindset about everything, and it's not that you don't want to make a lot of money, but then you're also not even prepared as to what to do with it when you do make all the money. And I remember there were different seasons, especially because I've always worked. I've always had a very okay, I knew my parents couldn't provide it for me, so I was definitely going to figure out how I was going to do it on my own. So I've worked since I was a kid, babysitting, my mom's friends' kids, or if I had to do some extra things just to make a couple of dollars, like whatever I could do at an early age, I was always doing it. And then when I became of legal age to work, which I don't even know if it was completely legal, I think I was like 14.
Legal-ish.
Yeah, legal-ish. I was working at a restaurant. And then so just constantly thinking about all these like opportunities that I was going after at a very young age, because for me mentally it was like that financial security. I kept seeing how much my mom suffered, and and no disrespect to like her relationships, but I also knew that my mom stood in certain relationships because of financial insecurity. She had dealt with a lot of health issues, and she had 4 kids when my dad and her divorced. We were still fairly young. I was in the 5th grade, and she was a mom of 4. And she,
And you're the oldest.
And I'm the oldest. And so I think, obviously, even, when you think about just the order of, how you've had your kids, if you do have multiple, like the oldest always sees every aspect of every situation. And whether we want to admit it or not, we are altered by those experiences. And so seeing her so early on be worried about like how we going to pay these bills, how Christmas was always very stressful for her. It was always about, like how I'm going to get food, how I'm going to. And so it was just kind of like when I started to get to make money, I'm going to like make money because I want to be able to pay for my own stuff. But had absolutely no understanding on the power of money and the power of credit and the power of, so I found myself earlier in my 20s, like in certain rooms and spaces, and I was so out of my element, meeting people who already were like investing in real estate. If I could go back, I would have taken some of the money that I had made and I would have invested it in properties, and I would have bought more homes. And because at that time you could get a fixer-upper, like you could
Don't make me cry.
You could get a house for $8,000, and
max.
Like you could do that. And it was just like at the time I was like, oh, I want to go to Vegas and I'm going to Miami for like all the dumbest things. I'm just like trying to see what people are doing on TV instead of like, because I didn't get to do all those things. And like now I got a little bit of money and I'm in Vegas and I'm going to Miami and I'm, doing all these things stupidly, just spending my money, and then had nothing to show for it. And so for me, it's just like understanding like how certain things are just like gate kept in a way. Like even now as an adult, I'm learning more about investments. And I know you, Maylin, and I are always sending each other like links and stuff that we see on TikTok. Because you also have to think about like the internet wasn't what it is today. So like I really felt like that's part of the disadvantage of just like growing up in certain pockets of generations. Is like you didn't know about these things if it wasn't in your immediate circle, like your family, the people you know, like you honestly were not, like you just didn't know. And so until the power of the internet really like exploded, like there was no YouTube channel about like how to invest your money. There was no other people I was even following online that was making that type of money or like what they were doing with that type of money. It wasn't until much later that I was like, oh, I could buy a house for like $8,000, or I could have started some other kind of company. I could have invested in stocks for like what was happening with technology. And so it's so interesting now, like I'm 41 and it's never too late. But I do feel that like if I had really had like direct guidance and access, like my net worth would be looking real different right now.
We may not have met though, but we will be set. You know what I'm saying? Like we may not have never met, but we will be somewhere living the vida loca. I mean, be that great, not loca, you know? But it's true.
Yeah.
And I think for me, number 2 is definitely financial, because I was told early, thank God, to get like a life insurance, right? Just when I was in my 20s, I get a life insurance. Don't tie it to your job, because you never know how long you're going to be in a job. But to me, I was going to retire from that blue bank, you know? Like there was you could not have told me nothing different. But I listened. I got the life insurance. I got to a term and a whole life. I didn't know how to work. I just knew that I had it in case something happens to me, my mom will be set, whatnot. But had I known then what I know now, how the Rockefellers did it, I will have trust, and I will have had whole life that actually is like be your own bank, and you will be saving into your own life insurance, and you could borrow against that and be your own bank, which is the term that we hear on the internet right now. But I didn't know that. You know, there's so much money that could have been into that. I would not have tried to finance my life, you know, and probably just live to, you know, according to my means. But when you come from not having, you're like YOLO, because I could die tomorrow. I'm going to go on the strip. I'm going to buy this thing. And then you look at the credit card bill and you're like, but I just want to see, like, where did the money go?
Yeah.
Like, what do I have to show for this 10,000 K that now I have to pay back? And now it's probably 20,000 because of the interest. And no shade, like, you know, there's a lot of people listening to this, and you probably are in the situation where you're maybe 10,000, 20,000, 100,000, whatever the amount is. And that one thing that I learned is that you can get out of it. It's going to take time and like breaking those habits that we grew up with because we didn't know better.
Right.
And it's going to, you know, it took you years to get there. It's going to take you years to get out. So just baby steps. Like one of the steps that I did now was I had to pay off a credit card. And my advisor was like, do not use it. And I'm like, but wait, I mean, when you say don't use it, like ever? Or like, he's like, do not. Like figure out something else to do, but don't use that card. And that's hard. So I had to actually like break the card. I don't know what I did with it. I cannot find the card now, but I got it.
Yeah.
But it's paid off. And I think being disciplined, which is a daily thing for me, of like, no. So I look at something and I'm like, like if I put this, like what is that gonna get me, right? Like, so now even thinking about my purchases a little bit more intentional that I wasn't before. Because again, I only live once. I see people that I care about die and they didn't take anything with them. So it's like that kind of battle sometimes that you have of like being financially responsible, but also living. Right? So it's like, how do you still live? Because you don't know when your last day is. But then also, how do you prepare in case you are here for a long time?
Right.
And that is a balance we do have to come up to terms with. And that's why they call it a budget. People have budgets. I don't like budgets. I really don't. Like for a while, I thought I was in the bagwag. I'm not in it. Like I want to make more money, so I don't have to worry about how much I spend. But I'm not there yet. So now I have to be like, okay, where's my money going? And sometimes you're just wasting money in stupid stuff. Yeah. You look like memberships and things and subscriptions that you don't. I'm like, who paid for that magazine? I don't even read that. Like, who paid for that? Like, you know, like, did they just got my information? Do I have to dispute that? And you're so busy that you're not even paying attention to your finances because literally you're trying to survive. So then you see a charge, you're like, I call later. You don't call never. They just took that money and they had a good profit year with your money that you never claim. So for me, my second thing for sure would be getting the financial education that I didn't get from my parents because they also didn't know. Right. So I would have loved to have had rich friends, that their parents were not gatekeeping and that they will have share with me, right? Like rich poor dad, like somebody will have set me down and say, hey, you need to invest in stocks. You like, I don't know, because I'm really, I'm very frugal, but okay, you like Coach. Well, you should buy Coach, stocks. Instead, you like Louis Vuitton. I like their perfume. That's what I could afford at this time. You should buy Louis Vuitton. So whatever you're using, like invest shares on that. I didn't learn about trading, and I still don't know how to trade. Yeah. I didn't learn about stocks even though I had a 401k until like literally not too many years ago. Yeah. Like truly started understanding what does it mean. Watching the market fluctuate. One of the things I'm grateful for is that I never freaked out when the market crashes and you see your investment go to like zero or like really low, because you're like, eventually that will come up. I just leave it there and forget it. But for some people, they didn't even get that. They didn't even get the opportunity to invest when they were young, right? My job, Geico at the time, was very intentional about making their employees invest, because Warren Buffett was the owner. He was very big on, stocks and shares. So he made all his employees, like he'll give them profit sharing, a percentage of their salary, and then he'll give you like 10% in a check for you to go and explain and have life. But the other 20% had to go into a stock market. Like it had to be put into your 401k. That was like non-negotiable. And I used to be annoyed because I'm like, I just want to go on vacation, get my money. But that discipline that they had helped a lot of people build their 401ks, right. But then again, I didn't have even then all the knowledge that I have now, that it will have made those investments probably millions now. And I could just be living off of that, and I could be a work optional now. Right. But that didn't happen. So now in my 40s, I'm 43, I believe. I'm going to be 44.
Next month.
According to the birth certificate, sure. And now I'm trying to like catch up, right? Like, okay, what do I need to do now to then not, because it's never too late, guys. That's another thing I learned. It's never too late to start investing and figuring it out how to make money. But if you are in your early 20s, your early 30s, you actually are ahead of the game. If you're listening to this, you can truly start getting the information that you need now. There's so much great information. Be careful what you're listening to, though. And look at it, like, what are you using? When are you using Apple stuff? Are you like an Apple brand ambassador without getting paid for it? Then you definitely should start buying Apple stocks. You are a Prime member, you get a Prime, Amazon package in your house every day. I just got 2 before I left my house. You should have Amazon stocks. You know what I mean? Like there's certain things. I walk around my house and I'm like, okay, what is in my house? What do I use on a daily basis?
Already.
Do I have stocks in there? So that's why I want to buy nothing until I got stocks. I want to make money. I'm like, I don't buy no sneakers until I buy those stocks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. Because and I think you gave such a great practical tip, in terms of, and obviously we are not financial advisors. Absolutely so not. We would encourage you to reach out to a professional. But certainly we are just transparent about our journey and kind of what has been working for us. And I think a big part of it is, really looking at what is it that you use on a day-to-day, and what are the trends showing? Like if we even circle back to the pandemic, the pandemic happened and, there was obviously such great loss, but there was also a lot of financial gain in other ways. And so when you think about companies like Zoom, for example, or like Netflix, and just what their profit margin did in terms of shares and investing, right now we're seeing a lot of AI opportunities that are, coming out every single day. And so, even being able to first take the time to learn, like this information, it may fall in your lap. Maybe this podcast episode fell in your lap and it'll pique your interest enough to start having some conversations or doing some research. But it is upon us to do the research. And I think going back to that kind of today's topic is like, that's something that I also wish I would have been a lot more intentional on younger, in terms of just being like, okay, I don't know something. That doesn't mean like stray away from it. That means I need to go find the answer. And and so taking the time to educate yourself, read the books, talk to the people who are doing what you're, where you want to be essentially. I don't think you need to go out and pay for a bunch of courses. I know right now that's a big deal. Everybody's selling something. But if you're not in a position to invest in that way, there's so many free resources, because this generation is very lucky. There is a lot of free resources. You have YouTube, you have most of the financial advisors. They also have videos like on their website. So start where you are. If you're like, I want to do this and I don't have $1,000 to invest in this financial course, like maybe that's not your starting point. Like, you know, figure out what makes the most sense for where you are and kind of move in that direction. So is it just watching the free versions? Most companies will allow you to have like a 30-minute consultation at no charge. So if your finances are a top priority, even though these are lessons that we've learned later in life, it's, as Maylin mentioned, it's never too late. Certainly, you know, if you have children, it's an opportunity for you to do things a little bit differently with them. You know, as a mom, I don't know that we are getting any further with my kids personally. Like, I think that they think there's an endless amount of money. I grew up poor, and so I knew we didn't have no money. My kids think I have more money than I actually do.
They do.
And so I got to figure out I got to figure that part out, because it's literally like, it's interesting because my oldest, very conservative. She has money saved. She is her father's daughter, 100%. And my husband is also very, very just financially savvy. When he makes his own decisions, it's when he incorporates me that sometimes he goes outside of where he really should be. So my oldest, check. She's definitely her dad's daughter. My middle, she has this whole other mantra of like, whatever you spend will come back to you. She don't know how it's coming back. She don't know when it's coming back, but she genuinely believes in her spirit. I don't worry about those things, Mom. She always says this to me. I don't worry about those things because I know that I'll just make more money in some kind of way, or you'll make some more. In her mind, her money is my money forever. And so she's very like, she has a whole different, and even though her father is also an entrepreneur, talks to her all the time about, you know, just money and building. She has just a different mindset. And then my son, absolutely no concept of money whatsoever. Like everything, it's only $5. It's only $10. It's only the biggest king combo meal possible at the restaurant. And so in his mind, when we say no, he says we're being cheap. And I'm like, do you even know what that means? And so it's so hard because like I'm still learning this stuff for myself every single day. And then I recognize that I'm also responsible for like teaching my children, and then the larger ecosystem of all the folks that we impact on a day-to-day basis. So I would say like definitely finances is something that's an ongoing, never-ending learning opportunity, and certainly like something that you should never feel ashamed. You should just feel like when you're ready to make a change, and one step at a time.
This brings me to a good question, which growing up, we had allowances.
I didn't have no allowance.
Okay. Do your children have allowances?
No.
Okay. So what we're trying, a suggestion could be to, since you have grown-up kids right now, a little bit more than me, like Jaira's not listening to nothing I say right now, so we're going to have to wait a little bit for me to try some of these out. But maybe talking to Kent, and then the two of you coming out with some strategies to show them, whether it be allowance and things, because what I have seen from other parents, when you have your kid buy that meal with their money, now they're not cheap. Now it's like, I have $20 and that combo is $21, right? Let's just say an example. I don't know how much they came, the biggest one. I only buy like the number one or two. So like, I think when they're using their own money, it truly gives them a perspective of what money is,
right,
and you know how it works. So how you earn it, how you spend it, and not because we're trying to be mean. You know, I don't have a kid at that age yet, but like I think it's like when I have my nieces and nephews, I'm like, okay, we're going to the dollar store. Everybody has $5. Go have fun. Go have fun now. You know, you guys now it's $125 now, so you got like 3-4 days.
Right.
And they get so excited, but they know they got $5. And then I don't have to worry about, is it in my budget, it's not in my budget. So that's one of the strategies I'm using with them so they can start valuing money a little bit more. Yeah. Because then it gives them a real life perspective of what things cost and what happens when the money leaves your thing. I do that with myself. I go to the store, I say, okay, you got $100 today. I'll be at Costco, that's 2 things.
Right.
Literally, so I'll be at the cashier like, 20 plus 30 and 4. I'm over. I'm like, we're going to return this one. And the first time I did that, I was embarrassed. The feelings were hard because I'm like, oh my God, like I have to return something. But I had to remember, like, no, but you have a budget. Like, you gave yourself this much today. So what's really important?
Right.
So that's a lesson that I'm still kind of learning myself. But if you do try any of those things, our next episode could be tips and ideas for your children as you, no matter how old, right? Like to teach them those things. I think it could be beneficial, like for you to try, but then also for our audience, if there are, because I think a lot of parents right now, our generation, are in a hard place. Because we didn't have a lot. We were not given a lot because we had no choice but to be tough. We had to survive. We had, especially if you were from a different culture, our parents didn't have enough. So now we're like out here being the example thing.
Yeah.
And we didn't get a lot of things given to us. So then we get kids and we're like, I don't want my kids to struggle. I want to give them everything I didn't have. I want them to have an amazing life. And that is beautiful.
Yeah.
But if something happens to us, life is not like that.
Right.
So how would they, like what would happen? So like for my purpose, I have a life insurance and I put it on a trust. So then I dictate how that trust will go. So that money will go straight into this thing, this trust. I spelled out to my lawyer what I wanted the money to go. So like when Jairus in school, when he's in high school, I hate to think about those things, but I have to. The Rockefellers did it. And then also think about like if he doesn't want to go to school, if he wants to start a business, how much should be distributed to him? And it's not like a whole lot of money yet, but eventually by the time, in the future, I should have more money to go into there. And that's the idea, that he will be set, but there will be parameters and boundaries of how that money could be used so he doesn't go YOLO on the money. And hopefully I'm given the opportunity, as I'm learning about finances, to teach him certain things that could help him even manage even better when he gets access to either that money or the money that he makes.
Yeah, so true. And you hit something, because like I think why my husband even is a little more like conservative now, because he lost his father at a younger age. Like he was like, I think 18 maybe. I think he was like 18 when his dad passed. And his dad did leave him a life insurance policy, him and his brother both. And, once again, I don't know that they had any formal training on, obviously they didn't expect him to pass, even though he had been battling cancer for a period of time. But, assume that he was going to beat it. I think Ken is what he shared with me before. And then, then he passes, and then suddenly he's like, they're responsible for all this stuff. They got an insert of money. They received a house as part of that will, and then also like a couple of vehicles or something. But he was like, we were just kids, we suddenly got this large amount of money and
in that neighborhood.
And he did everything he, possibly wrong, I think. Like, but it's a product of your circumstance. He bought a couple cars, he bought jewelry, made no investments, even in the house that he had acquired. And so he always talks about that, like if he had done the right things with that money and invested it, how much further along he would have been and would have been able to do for us. And so to your point, you'd never want to think about those things. But even him being technically an adult, he was 18, maybe 19 when his dad passed. He still had absolutely no clue what to do with this money when he got it. And then, he burned through it very quickly. And
he had two things going for him, or against him. Grieving. You just lost your dad, who he absolutely loved, based on everything I know for you guys for the years. So that was grief that he was dealing with probably still. And then you have no education and no talks were given about what to do with that money when you get it, because you had a different alternative in mind. That, like, if I do pass, this is, his father probably hoped that he was going to fight it too. Is what you should do with this. That didn't happen. And it wasn't written anywhere to provide a guidance. And I think what I took away from that, and what I took away from some of my family members that have passed, is that, yes, you do have to have it in writing. Like for Jaira, he won't have access to all the money until he's 30.
Wow, 30?
Yeah, okay. Because you're still young. So he will have access to certain amounts.
Like, leading up to
if he gets, like on a roll, he gets a certain amount. If he gets so he's really rewarded for all the high school through the years. When he completes high school, if he decides to go to college or wants to start a business, what amount will be given. And then if he wants to get married, you know, and then also now when he gets to like a 30, because hopefully by then your brain has fully developed, guys. After that, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then it also hopefully will help him.
Right.
You know, and then I also have somebody that's going to execute the thing for him. So there's people specific for that. And it wasn't easy. Like, you know, and I don't have it all figured out. God knows I'm a work in progress. I am not where I want to be. But I am trying to learn as I learn things and do it and try to implement it in my household.
Yeah.
So when I am no longer here, he doesn't have to do, hopefully, a GoFundMe, right? Like, he will have things set up. And when I get older, too, so now you're looking at the older parents. So if you're looking, like our parents, right? Like, they're getting in their 60s and kind of to that age. And, you know, you sadly just lost like a grandparent, right? Like, there's a level of care that has to happen for our older parents.
Right.
And our parents had to take care of their parents, right? Both of our moms have been caregivers to their parents, and it's a heavy load. And when you don't have money, even heavier.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking about my aging parents, and am I financially ready to support that? What do I need to do to get to that? Because is there any insurance that I could take out? I don't even have the answer for that for you guys, but hopefully after this, I'll do some research, but there has to be something that now we have to start preparing.
So true.
To take care of our parents, where it doesn't become a burden. It doesn't become overwhelming and burned out. And it's going to take some resources. Yeah. So what is it that we need to do if you're in that stage? Like, I'm in my 40s, my mom is in like her 60s. What do we need to start doing right now to prepare for our elderly parents as they're aging?
So true.
So we're not stressed out.
Yeah. No, it's so true. You said two things that I want to circle on really quickly before we wrap this episode. You mentioned on your trust, you know, having a person to execute the trust. Yeah. And I think that is so critically. Unfortunately, like, my father-in-law had assigned somebody who was not supportive of my husband and his brother. It was a sibling. It was his father's sister. So I guess he had assumed like she would be the perfect person to help execute this trust and guide them as young men as to like what to do. And unfortunately, that did not happen. It was very like she barely even spoke to them. And, you know, so I think to your point, you know, when you are setting up all these things, be really mindful of like not only how you set it up and parameters, but who are those designated people that if they have to walk your kids through some of the hardest seasons of their lives now without you, like, who is that person? And that's something that I know. And, you know, I know Mr. Reed didn't, he obviously picked the best person he thought, but the truth of the matter is that probably was the worst person to have picked because she provided no guidance to them. And even to this day, like, the relationship has been very estranged after his father passed. So I wanted to highlight that. And then secondly, the piece around, you know, the aging parents. I think that is so critically important, you know, because I do worry about that now. I'm seeing my mother-in-law and her husband aging very quickly in a way that you just assume people are always going to be healthy and okay. And we are seeing that play out in real life right now, and seeing my husband having to make all these decisions because he has other siblings. You know, his stepfather has other children, but they are not active. They are not involved on the level that we are. So we know that this will fall on us and has already fell on us, but not that it's a burden, but it is a responsibility. And, you know, my grandfather just passed away last week, and my mother is now with her siblings trying to figure out, you know, how they were going to bury him. And so, you know, it prompted this conversation with me and my siblings about like, well, you know, what are we even preparing for my mom? Because I'm pretty confident that she doesn't have certain policies in place because she couldn't afford them. And because she does have so many health concerns. And so it is certainly an uncomfortable conversation, but what's going to be even more uncomfortable is when you don't have that money when the time comes. When, you know, either your family member is sick and you don't have the money to take care of them, or they've passed and you don't have the proper funds to, you know, do whatever you want to do with them aftermath. And so although these conversations are uncomfortable and they're hard, they are necessary when you start to think about finances and how you're not only setting up yourself for your day-to-day, how you want to live, but the people that matter to you, like having those conversations about where they are so that you can effectively plan together.
Yes, and you said something important. It's hard to pick an executive of a trust because who you see today may not be the person that they is when the things really happen.
Right.
But if you spell it out, then they have to follow that, right? So I think that's when it becomes your support, is that maybe the person may have lost their mind when they get to be the executor, but if you have already dictate how you want that to be followed, it's almost like a will,
right?
Then they will have to follow. So even if they suck,
right,
they will have to follow your directions, and hopefully what you left is, you know, a good direction to leave for your children or your family. So that's why I was so detailed, and I copied that from a financial advisor. I literally say, show me what you told your lawyer. Great. I want that. So when I went to the lawyer, he's like, so you saw so-and-so. I said, sure did. Sure did. Why?
I need to get your Cliff Notes because I have not done any of this, and I definitely should be doing this very soon. Yeah.
And I'm almost like, you know, my mom comes soon. Like, I have to sit down with her and have a conversation.
Yeah.
Like, what did you want?
Right.
And then what happens when, God forbid, because life is finite right now, you know, and I want to make sure that we're prepared. And then that way if something happens, then we have it. Because at the time, I won't be able to think.
Yeah. Oh, no.
I would need really strong people around me to carry the plan that has been placed because I won't have the strength.
Right.
To deal mentally with whatever that is. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's important. Like for you, like once I have my plan, you will know it.
Yeah.
Because I would need somebody strong next to me to help me.
Yeah.
And that's important for everybody thinking about this. If you don't have aging parents, but you have aging people that you care about, or even for yourself. I'm already thinking about myself, and I'm only 40. Like,
I know.
Who's going to
trying to retire?
Well, I want to be work optional by 50. You know, I was thinking 45 really, but I want to give Guy a little couple of days. But I really like to be like next year when we're doing our podcast. I'll be like, I don't know, Dubai.
Right, we'll have to take Dalton with us.
Him and his girlfriend or wife at the time.
Yeah, he can pack it up and come with us.
Listen, because I will have so much money, we will be able to do it.
He can just be with us. Dalton will be our full-time engineer.
We're claiming it. We're claiming it with all the vibrations up in this room, okay?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today. And as we mentioned, you know, we obviously are not financial advisors. We are just trying to share with you what has worked for us, or what are we presently working on? Because oftentimes it's like, oh, they have all the, like, no, we don't have, we are learning just like you are. And so today's topic is, you know, if we started over today, here's what we would do differently, recognizing that, you know, we can't technically go back in time, but we can start where we are. And so the message for you is today, regardless if it's marriage, love, if it's health, if it's, you know, finances, like you can start today. Start where you are. You know, don't overthink it. Don't feel like you're too late. Don't feel like you've made too many mistakes. Certainly, there's still an opportunity. And the more you are in denial about that and you push it off, that's the mistake.
That's a delay.
That's a delay. But it's never too learn. It's never too late to learn and to do things differently in a way that you would define as different and really what it needs to be for you. So thank you for tuning in. Please like and share this episode with others if it was helpful to you. And until we meet again, always remember, it's bigger than you.
Thank you so much for listening today. We're excited and we hope that you follow us on
Instagram, True Print for Life, YouTube channel, also True Print for Life. And make sure that you share, like, watch our videos. Make sure that you follow us on all streaming platforms.